are very delighted to have you this morning. We know you could have been somewhere else. The week has been very busy. Your coming here is an indication of your commitment to the importance of mobilizing data to inform decisions and actions on the ground. So this is the last day of the AGRF. We understand that our event was given special treatment. This is why it's not a side event, it's a partner event. So we are very grateful to the organizers for giving us this consideration. Without further ado, we're here to look at the CAADP biennial review process, how to promote data use for evidence-based decision-making. For that, we have a program which I will be directing. My name is Augustin Wamboyamje. I work for Academia 2063 based in Kigali as the director for a department responsible for knowledge systems. We do have on the program opening remarks we received from the Academia chairperson, Dr. Ousmane Badiane, and then Ms. Pandoleni, who is sitting in for Godfrey Baegwa, the director at the African Union Commission. She will also share a few words of opening. From there, we will invite two presenters. The first one will be Ms. Titi Makombe, serving as the Director for External Relations at Academia 2063. Her presentation will focus on RUSAC's efforts to promote the CAADP biennial review used. And then we will invite a distinguished fellow, Dr. Sam Benin, Deputy Director for Africa Office at the IFPRI. He will be sharing some update on CAADP biennial decision support tool. I don't want to say much about that. We will have an opportunity to hear from him. From there, we will have an opportunity to get a few questions from a few reactions to the presentation before inviting our distinguished panelists. We have 4 in total. I will introduce them when the time comes. So it's critical that we are here today after 3 cycles of the biennial review. It was important for us to have a sense of whether what we are doing is really being put into use. So today's conversation will give us an overview of where we stand, especially bringing in contributions from the people who are on the field, trying to make sense out of all the knowledge that has been generated so far. So let me now invite Dr. Badiane to take the floor for his opening remarks. Welcome, sir.
Good morning to everyone who is joining us here. Welcoming our friends from ActionAid. Constance, it's good having you here as a partner. Boaz, having Agra here as a partner is also something we cherish, so thank you for the partnerships. Don't think we have somebody from Gates Foundation here, but also with us on this. So thank you very much. Would also want to welcome Prof. Mutondo for being here with us, as well as Josephine, who are joining us. And of course, last but not least, Pandolini from the African Union Commission, who is also here with us. So thank you for everybody who made the way here after a long week and very early in the last day of a long conference. We appreciate having you here with us. The biennial review or the joint sector reviews, and for that matter, the entire mutual accountability process under the CAADP agenda has been a major innovation in the CAADP, inspired by the African peer review mechanism that was looking at political governance and economic governance at the country level. African Union and its member state developed one of the most robust process of peer learning, benchmarking, peer review, just to facilitate improvement of the actions of what we do on the ground. And that's really made a big difference. One of the things, for the first time actually under CAADP, that Africa is exporting development paradigm. Next week, I think, there's going to be a learning mission from Nepal going to Senegal on the joint sector review process. Several years back, when the World Bank started the Global Food Security Program, GASPS, one of the criteria was for other countries in Latin America and in Asia to have a CAADP-like, and those were the words, a CAADP-like process to qualify for the funding. So that has been a major move we all take for granted now because we've been under it for about 20 years and we think it's a normal way of doing business. The world was very different before that. So thank you to everybody who's been part of that. It's been a long journey. But I will just take 1 second, Constance, to emphasize the importance of the civil society, non-state actor community. When the JSR, which started before the biennial review, the mutual accountability processes were being thought about, the publication of the ATOR as the M&E report, there was the intention to have the non-state actors play a very, very strong role, to take the results, to take the evidence, go with it to the countries, and make sure there's an exchange and a dialogue around it to get your members to challenge governments, to challenge others, and so on. And we would like to see that really extended and intensified. We appreciate the partnership with ActionAid and your leadership among non-state actor groups, and we hope that going forward we can do that even better than we did in the past. One other thing we need to do as well with the biennial review, and good to have our sister Agnes and Pandolini here, we have been using the BR to look back in the rearview mirror. How did we do last year? How did we do the year before? And just to track. Maybe the time has come now also to use it to look forward. How can we go from a backward-looking tracking tool to a forward-looking planning tool that helps us correct the mistakes of the past, learn from the failures of the past to better do what we need to do in the future? And for that, we are happy to have our partner institution, the International Food Policy Research Institute, collaborating with us for a long time on many different things. Dr. Sambenin, who is here, and you'll hear from him. We're working together to develop an interactive simulation tool that will allow countries to use the BR score for decision-making as to where do they need to do what and better and more so that they can move the needle. Not just have a better score, really, but the tool will allow them to say, what does it mean for us in real terms, in terms of productivity, in terms of income, in terms of growth, so that they know that the BR is just not to rank high or low, but really to do better as we go forward, right? So we very much look forward to the presentations today from my colleague, Ms. Makombe, Sam, and the others who are going to be commenting on that. So thank you again for joining us. We look forward to having even more robust biennial review process in the post-Malabo agenda and continue to innovate to bring data, evidence, analytics into decision-making process, but also to have an inclusive, robust, and comprehensive review process that bring all the actors around the table and allow us to measure better, to track better, and hopefully have better outcomes as we go. So thank you, everybody, and welcome. Thank you.
Let me now invite my sister Pandolini to make her way and share her remarks with us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Dr. Badiani, the Executive Chairperson of Academia 2063, distinguished collaborative partners, members of the panel discussion, representative of the host country, the Republic of Tanzania, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and greetings from Dr. Godfrey Bahigwa, the Director of Agriculture and Rural Development within the African Union Commission who could not be here with us today to engage, to discuss and share views as they pertain to the promotion of data use for evidence-based decision-making. And this, as Dr. Bediana have indicated, is all within the context of the biannual review, of which I believe that you're all aware that the biannual review is primarily a mutual accountability mechanism that the African Union Commission and its member states use to track and monitor the implementation of the Malabo commitments. And I'm happy to learn that Dr. Badiana indicated that we should not only track and monitor, but rather looking forward. And with that, I believe that we will learn more today about that forward looking. I am delighted to be here this morning with you all on behalf of my director, as we seek partners' support to access efforts being made to see how we can promote data use for any decision making, which potentially could transform agricultural sector and food systems at scale. Let me firstly thank all the partners of this event, Academia 2063, AGRA, BMGF, and the non-state actors for jointly organizing this event. It is being held at the very, very right time when at the continental level and led by the African Union Commission, we are currently in the process of analyzing data that we have just collected or have been collected by our member states to inform the fourth BR report. And as you know, this BR process is really, really designed in a very inclusivity way where all partners have a role to play. And I believe that all partners here today has in one way or the other supported this BR tool. Dear partners, ladies and gentlemen, the existence of the BR spans now just over 7 years. One of the key priorities under the CAADP commitment is to enhance mutual accountability for actions and results. This is by conducting reviews and strengthening capacities of knowledge and data sharing. As such, results and recommendations outlined in the CAADP BR are supposed to inform policy intervention, particularly at the national level. Today, one would say there is simply a very, very low uptake for countries to adjust their policies based on BR recommendations. Therefore, we need to be practical for the countries and to be as simple as possible so that they are able to translate into intervention calls when we do these recommendations for the countries. Challenges and critical areas does exist and has been well documented since the first BR. But most of these challenges still talk to issues of data gaps and the questionable quality of data of our countries. It is therefore within this context that I am hoping that discussions of today, we should not only limit the promotion of data use, but let us pin out areas on how countries can improve quality of data, how they could create data clusters, platforms, bringing together institutions at the national level that probably already collect data that are aligned to CAADP indicators. Academia 2063, in our view, has been very, very instrumental, and the executive chairperson alluded to that in his opening remarks. They have supported the African Union and its member states to develop the electronic data system, which we now call the EBR. I also wish to indicate that PolicyLink, which is a USAID node, also supported the African Union with the development of a CAADP BR toolkit and dashboard. Allow me further to explore, or to upload rather, the non-state actors group. Just this week, Monday, on the margin of AGRF, we had an event with the parliamentarians who were sitting together from the various national committees of agriculture. And that was simply for one simple goal, to see how they can identify policy actions that could accelerate progress being made, drawing from the BR results. It is such drive that we need, in my view, and that commitment is not being taken for granted. And again, I think the executive chairperson talked to how the non-state coalition was formed and its objectives thereof. So you are doing very, very well, Madam Constant, on behalf of the rest of the group. Before I conclude, let me also further briefly just indicate to you some current efforts at the African Union level that we are currently doing. And it's all aimed to support the BR challenges and its data use. There is an external evaluation, or you could call it an audit, of the overall biannual review, which is aimed to really, really establish the efficiency of a self-reporting system. And this audit also is expected to suggest measures that can strengthen the quality and robustness of the result processes at both national, regional, as well as continental levels. Also, the African Union in its entirety is currently developing a data policy. This policy, once completed, it is hoped that it will promote open data use, but most importantly, we are hoping that it will provide a window for available data collected for the purpose of in-depth research studies by the academics. Again, this would, I believe, really, really support that forward-looking decision tools that have just been mentioned. Let us explore, therefore, incentives, structures, tools, and processes that will enable evidence-based decision for the benefit of the African country. Let us not reinvent where we can simply tap from good practices that exist. Let us purposely create effective, open, and engaged groups to support the BR data use. Let us envision the world where the African nation, and I believe we are all African, can fully capacitate the BR data, and not only what is being collected. Let us ensure that the outcomes also of the BR data results recommendations are policy relevant. Dear partners, ladies and gentlemen, 2025 is around the corner when the Malabo Declaration and its 7 commitments lapses. Internal discussions have commenced on how we can shape the post-Malabo agenda. It has been agreed that the post-Malabo agenda needs to be informed by evidence-based studies, and this simply talk to the interpretation of data and its results, which we have collected since inception, and what it means if we are to accelerate agricultural transformation. Finally, let me wish you all fruitful deliberations and discussions. I personally look forward to the panel intervention so that we can, from the African Union perspective, gather your views on how we can better inform through the existing BR processes. Thank you very much. Asante sana.
Thank you very much for this very powerful speech, Panduleni. Let me now invite our first presenter, Ms. Titi Makombe, to please take the floor, make her presentation. Keep an eye on the watch. If I walk next to you, closer to you, yes, please, you know that your time is up. Thank you.
Noted, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am briefly going to talk to you about RISAC's efforts to promote CAADP biannual review data use. And let me note that the work of RISAC is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as well as the United States Agency for International Development, and we're very grateful for that support. So with that, as a way of introduction, the CAADP biannual review tracks country progress towards achieving agri-food transformation goals that are outlined in the Malabo Declaration. So really, the CAADP biannual review is an important tool for promoting mutual accountability as well as evidence-based decision-making. And the CADA biennial review, just like all mutual accountability processes of CADAP, demand, for them to work effectively, they demand timely access to, as well as the use of high quality data and information to inform all of their data needs, ranging from the shared agendas and goals, the performance indicators, the evidence-based planning and implementation, the benchmarking and monitoring, all the way to review and dialogue. The CADA biennial review, which is now in its 4th cycle, as Ms. Panduleni was mentioning, has really helped to highlight both data improvements that are taking place, but also remaining data challenges, especially in terms of data quality and data use. And data use is something we'll focus on more on today. And in light of the theme of AGRF, for the theme, at least for side events and partner events around data and inclusion, I wanted to note that the CADA biennial review process has been an evolving process. It has been adjusted and refined as we've gone on, right? So to more comprehensively track all the agri-food transformation goals, the indicators have expanded. They started off at 44 back during the first BR in 2017. Now they're about 59 in this latest ongoing 2023 BR. And a new indicator that's been added is one, or there are two indicators. There's been an indicator added on the dissemination as well as on the utilization of BR results by countries as well as other CADAP stakeholders. Indicators on women's participation in agriculture, youth engagement in agriculture have been added during this phase of CADAP, and these are indicators that were not previously tracked, especially in those first 10 years of CADAP. So really the CADAP process has become more inclusive and diverse. There's now engagement of the CADAP non-state actor group, CADAP parliamentarians, CADAP youth network, the CADAP journalist network, and I think this engagement really helps to raise awareness about the BR. It helps with disseminating the BR results as well as promoting the use of the data. Then RESACS, the Regional Strategic Analysis and Knowledge Support System, is one of the flagship programs of Academia 2063 that provides data and analysis to facilitate CADA benchmarking, review, dialogue, and mutual learning processes. And RESACS really supports the entire biennial review data value chain, from data prioritization to production, curation, analysis, interpretation, and use. And I really wanted to also just note that even though we're focusing more on use, all the other stages of the value chain are important for informing our data use. So one of the ways in which RESACS is helping to promote data use is through setting up, establishing and strengthening inclusive data clusters in 10 selected countries across the continent. Essentially, these data clusters, they're composed of local country experts who include state and non-state actors with expertise in the different thematic areas of Malabo. So on average, you have about 7 clusters in a country. So they really help the CADA biennial review team with filling data gaps and improving data quality. So I really believe these data clusters can promote data use because, one, they're bringing in a whole new group of stakeholders to engage in the process, and they can help to continually update and use the data, especially or during off-BR years. Another way RESACS is helping to promote data use is by producing and publishing biennial review briefs. These are usually produced in collaboration with country and regional CADAP focal points, and these briefs are also produced at the country, regional, country and regional levels. Thematic briefs are also produced. To date, RESACS has produced about 50 biennial review briefs based on the 2021, the 2019, and the 2017 BRs. And really, these briefs are then disseminated through the RESACS website, social media networks, as well as they are shared with partners who can further disseminate their findings. And of course, RESACS also disseminates it in various country and regional events it participates in. And one of those events that RESACS disseminates and has sort of discussions around the CADA biennial reviews, the RESACS Annual Conference, which is organized by Academia 2063 in partnership with the African Union Commission. And RESACS also participates in partner events with the biennial reviews being discussed, such as today here at AGRF, also at the CADA Partnership Platform meeting that is organized by the African Union Commission, as well as the Malabo Learning event. And RESACS disseminates information on sort of the briefs and other biennial review analysis during validation and dissemination workshops happening at the country and regional level. And I have some examples of where this recently happened. And of course, RESACS also participates in parliamentarian dialogue, such as the CADA Parliamentarian Peer Learning event that happened earlier in March this year. And more specifically, RISAX also actually assesses policy and programmatic changes that are taking place as a result of the BR. It does this through online surveys as well as key informant interviews to try and understand is anything changes really following the BR. And there is evidence that there are some policy and programmatic changes that have taken place. And I have some examples here for you. For example, there have been initiatives to spur agriculture sector investments and productivity in Cote d'Ivoire and Niger. After the first BR highlighted sort of the weak data systems in countries like Mozambique went on to actually incorporate some BR indicators in their national agricultural surveys. And also policy process, dialogues and processes are becoming more inclusive of non-state actors in countries such as Mozambique and Malawi. And also, I think in Malawi, following the first BR, they actually had reviews of their input policies. Then another way of promoting the CAADP biannual reviews through the EBR that Dr. Badian also mentioned, which is really a web-based, this is the electronic biannual review. It's a web-based tool that was introduced during the second BR, developed by RISAX in partnership with the African Union Commission to really improve the efficiency of BR data entry, reporting, and management. But I think also a key contribution of this electronic biannual review is improving data quality. This is happening through some of the cell restrictions that you find in the EBR, the flagging of outliers, having mandatory, requiring that data sources are provided as countries input the data. And I believe improving data quality really helps to promote data use. And then lastly, in terms of way forward, recent assessments are showing that they still need to raise awareness of the BR process among different stakeholders and institutions. The more people are engaged and involved in it, and I think the more we'll see the use of its data. There's also need to promote the BR into country processes such as the agriculture joint sector reviews. These happen more frequently in some countries. They happen twice a year or once a year. The BR happens every 2 years. So if countries can actually engage in BR results and findings, it can then be more closely tied to policy or to basically monitoring what's happening with the implementation, for example, of the National Agriculture Investment Plans. And as my fellow speaker presenter here, Dr. Sam Benin would say, there's need to look beyond the BR scores. I think usually the BR, at least this past BRs, they've tended to focus on the scores. If we really want to promote data use, it's also important that we promote the use of the values themselves. And there's need to also really make the data more accessible. I was happy to hear Panduleni from AUC note that they are working on a data policy to make this data more accessible and more available to different people. I think this will be very key in promoting the use of this data and also making it available to more people who can analyze it. And lastly, I'll just note that as my executive chairperson was saying, yes, the biannual review has been a very important tool for tracking and assessing performance, but I think to make the data, to encourage more use of the data, we need the data to be more usable for policy planning and decision making. So we're very happy that Academia 2063, in partnership with IFPRI, we are developing this web-based biannual review decision support tool that will do exactly that, support policy planning and decision making. So I will stop here. Thank you very much. Asante.
Thank you very much, Titi, for that brilliant presentation. I think you only used 9 minutes, which is very good, so we save on time. Let me now bring in Sam. I hope his presentation is ready. Will you be a bit, okay. Yes, Sam.
Thank you, Augustin. All protocols observed. So I just wanted to share with you, give you a sneak peek into something that we've been working on for quite a bit. If you're a CAADP enthusiast or CAADP BR enthusiast and have been following, you will notice these two charts at the top, which shows the scores for the countries and also a country page, which here shows Ghana, tells you the progress and then some recommendations. As Titi mentioned, and we all know, the BR really is assessing on track or not on track status for countries to achieve the Malabo Declaration targets on agricultural transformation. And the report also has recommendations or recommended actions, which are based on the lower scoring indicators that is being tracked. However, it is not clear whether and how those actions will lead to desired outcomes, for example, growth, income, wealth, because the outcomes are what countries are really looking for, and that is what people look at. And so it is this shortcoming that is fueling or motivating this forward-looking decision support tool. So what is it? Actually, a while back when we started working with the countries on the National Agricultural Investment Plans, James Taylor and I, we're going from countries to country. And this is when, working with a modeler, I started to think about, the ways in which countries can be equipped to be thinking more forward, in a forward-looking manner. And so what we are proposing is a web-based interactive tool that allows everybody, anybody who has access to a computer and wants to learn and see it, can go in there and work around with it, basically to evaluate policy options for optimizing achievement of outcomes at a country level, right? So it's a partial equilibrium model, and it's based on minimizing the cost of policies to achieve a particular outcome or a set of outcomes. And this is based on the CADA-BR data. And so the main thing here is looking at the link between the CADA policies that is reflected in the BR. I've listed some indicators there. You don't have to really worry about it now. And then the outcomes that are also within the BR. And so the thing that is appealing about this is that it is purely based on the BR data set. We are not bringing in any data from anywhere, right? And so it means that those who are interested in the BR, those who are promoting it, those who want to use it, can actually rely on this for further analysis. And progress, so basically we are finalizing a proof of concept. What it means is that we've conducted some econometric analysis between the relationship, looking at the relationship between the CADA policies, about 13 of them now that we've characterized, and then about 10 outcomes, which are also in the BR data set. But here we've used 10 policies and 6 outcomes because we had complete data. And we're testing it for 3 countries, Ghana, Liberia, and Rwanda. This is purely by choice because those countries had data on all of them, on all of these things. And we're also compiling the cost of implementing policies, because when you do a simulation and you reach an outcome, you have to change policies, and policies are not costless, right? And so we need to understand the relative cost of policy so that we can make a stronger understanding of where we want to go. And then we are building an online interface, basically what allows users to go online and test with it. So the box on the right-hand side is just giving you the way that we are thinking the interface will look like. So at the top, it shows when you go in there, it will tell you the base or where you are at in terms of the scores of policies and the scores on the outcomes. You can also see the indicators, and you can see the contribution of how different policies are contributing to the outcome. So when I say policies, I'm referring to the policy variables in the BR itself. And then we're also thinking that it would be useful to see how those policies get to the outcomes in terms of through this, what we are calling these intermediate results, things like using fertilizer, access to extension, and things like that. That is a bit more complicated, but at least the way that we run the estimations will also allow us to be able to do that to the extent that the data will. And then the third panel there is what now allows the user to interact with the model. So basically, we allow the user to change some things. For example, may be able to change some of the linkages if they think that it does not really reflect what is within the country. They can also put a budget. If you want to put $1 million, you put a budget. And then you identify the outcomes that you are interested in. Or you can also identify the policies that you are interested in. And then you run your model. So when you run your model, you get a result of the outcomes that you would achieve compared to the baseline, right? And then it also give you a budget allocation. So let's get a peek into what the model is like. This is Excel-based, like I said, so that it's appealing. If you like to use Excel, you can use it, so it's not GAMS-based or some other more complex software. So this is Excel. So basically, we've programmed everything in Excel, and so here I'm just showing you an example of the page for Ghana. So at the top, you can see your policy variables. There are 10 of them. So these are like CADEP completion index, expenditure, trade facilitation, the variables that we reflect as the policies. And then on your left-hand side, you can see the outcomes. So here the outcomes are child stunting and the weight, etc. But like I said, there's about 10 of them in the BR database. Since we've added more indicators, we have to also update on that. So this is done for using the second BR data. So you can see it's already really outdated in terms of data. But again, it's a test to, like I said, to show the proof of concept. And then the red matrix you are seeing there, this is based on the estimations that we did, right? And so once you have the estimations, you use them as priors, you tweak them a little bit so that we can calibrate a model to generate the base results. So for example, here, the base results is 2018. And so you can see the row that says base percentage change from base, it's all 0. So basically, we've been able to replicate that base. And then the way to run your simulation is that you change what the outcome that you want. So given where you are, the outcome that you are at, you can change it, say that, okay, I want to reduce something further by a certain percentage, right? And then once you do that, you get your results. So here, I'm just giving an example. If you want to say, for example, reduce the national poverty rate by 10%, you input 10 into that cell. So basically, you say you want to reduce it by 10, and then you get a solver up, and then you run it. So when you run it, then your results will show up in that column, in the row that says percentage change from base. Here, don't focus on the actual numbers. Like I said, this is just a test. But basically, so it will tell you which policies need to be changed and by how much, because you can see the percentage change of the policies, CADEP policies, that will allow you to get to your outcome, right? So your outcome was to reduce national poverty by 10%. But because the model is together, I mean, it's the policies and the other variables are all interlinked. So it's not only your outcome that will change, also the other outcomes will change. So basically, the right-hand side will tell you how other outcomes will also change. And then you can change for one, you can run the results for one, or you can do multiple changes in outcomes. But again, because it's a partial equilibrium model, it is looking at things on the margin, right? So doing big changes doesn't really help you. The most important thing is to do small changes so that you can see how things are moving. And I think that is the lesson here, is to understand how, based on at the margin, how things are changing. Then it gives you a better idea of how the different policies are linked to the different outcomes. So the strength will be doing multiple changes with small changes at the same time. So my last slide, basically what we have to do is revise the model using the updated 4 BR data. But here the main challenge is data quality, because this is a country-level model, right? And so for each country, you only have a few number of years. And so the data has to be really, really good. It has to reflect what is on the ground. Otherwise, like we say, garbage in, garbage out. And so this is what we've been working with the AU over the years. And those of you who know, seen my interactions in those meetings, that's what I'm really, really pushing, is improving the data quality. And we also have to get the cost of the policies right. It is easy for some of them, like ag expenditures. The data is already, you can use the data itself to cost those policies. But for other ones, it's more challenging. For example, the policy variable on trade facilitation. To be able to cost that, you have to know the cost of physical infrastructure, road, railways, etc. There's ICT, administration of exports and imports, trade agreements, and immigration. This is what is used to compose that policy variable. So to be able to cost it, you need to cost these different things, right, and to see it. And so that is a challenge that we are facing with some of them. And like I said, we have to build a prototype to see that it works well. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Sam, for this brilliant presentation. I think that gives us a sense of how much it matters for countries to be given options to make their own decisions based on information that is reliable. That gives country flexibility. Now, with these two presentations, we have noticed two things. Not only from inception, the biennial review that started as a manual operation, as a manual process, has now been automated thanks to the EBR, the Electronic Biennial Review. We are now saying that we are not happy enough. We want to have forward-looking. Hence, this tool that Sam just presented. For those who were not in the process at the start, everything we are seeing here today was presented as impossible. Now it happens, it's happening, and we're so happy. We can't wait to see the outcome of this work that Sam and the team are doing. Having said this, let me now invite the panelists to join. We will have 35 minutes panel discussion to have their reactions to what has been presented, but more precisely on how the use of biennial review data is happening on the ground. The first panelist I would like to call to the podium is Ms. Constance Okeke, who is a project manager working for Action Aid International and an active member of the CADEP non-state actor group. Welcome, Constance. The second is Professor João Mutondo, working for the University of, for Eduardo Mondlane University in Mozambique, who is also a technical advisor to the Ministry of Agriculture. Welcome, Prof. Let me invite Mrs. Josephine Helena Hongosi, serving as the Principal Agricultural Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries, and Cooperatives of Kenya. She's our entry point in Kenya as a CADEP focal point. Now, let me invite an important actor. For those who do not know him, he's one of those who have been the face of CADEP for many years, Mr. Boaz Kesire, Head of Policy at AGRA, a true believer in the BR. Thank you very much for your support. Take your seat. The questions that we will be asking panelists will help the audience have a sense of where we stand when we talk about using the BR to change things on the ground. As I mentioned earlier on, it's good to have the data, it's good to have all this system in place, but if what comes through the system is not being put into use, we would have been investing limited resources in vain. Luckily, there are some good developments on the ground that we will be probably hearing from the panelists here. To you, Constance, working with Action Aid International, you represent an important constituency in this conversation. You've been actively engaging in the biennial review process from the onset. Can you briefly tell us how you're using the BR for your advocacy work on a daily basis?
Okay, thank you, Augustine, and thank you, everybody, for giving us this opportunity. As Action Aid, we are implementing a project called Scaling Up Public Investment in Agriculture, which is like a sequel to a project we've run for many years, Public Financing for Agriculture. And the aim of that project is to see how we can catalyze policy actions that will improve investment, public investment in agriculture to the benefit of smallholder farmers, especially women. And we've done this across some African countries. And currently we are doing that in Nigeria and Tanzania. And what we've done is to ensure that we work with other non-state actors within these countries and also see how we can link up what we do at the continental level. So like you rightly said, we've been part of the biannual review process and also the CADI process as far back as 2010. And I'm happy sitting with Boaz here because anytime I see him, I'm excited because he has been one of the promoters of working together as non-state actors. Many people might not know, while he was in the AUC, he really played a role in opening up that space for non-state actors. And I think it was in 2014 when we had the family farming year. Different NGOs, including ActionAid, Oxfam, and the rest of us, we would be engaging the AUC individually. And he was like, can't you guys work as a team instead of dissipating energy and resources? And that gave rise to the first coming together of non-state actors so that we can all work as a group. But I'll get to that in a short while. But as ActionAid, we make sure that we bring the voices of the people to the table and also take their needs from bottom up to the right places. So what we do, we engage with the process, we get the data. For example, when the reports are released, we ensure that we conduct what we call national dialogues and the dissemination process, because we realized that, for example, the first BR, we were waiting for the country to organize events where non-state actors and other stakeholders would get to hear about the BR, and that didn't happen. And nothing happened, and we were like, how then do we, bring issues to the table? So we realized that we had to take the bull by the horn, organize these meetings, especially for farmers that are in the communities that are being affected by whatever policy decisions that are being made. And what that meant was that whatever result, no matter how technical it was, we needed to break it down so that the farmer in the village will understand when you say, for example, Nigeria, where I come from, is not meeting the benchmark or is doing well in a particular performance indicator or the performance category, what does it mean to the farmer? And how do you relate that to the financing of agriculture in terms of budget allocation? So we took that to the communities so that the farmers will have this information and are able to engage the policymakers. But we also found out that when you get to the communities or to the state level, some of the ministry officials didn't know about the CADEP. They didn't even get to hear the results because only a few of them participate in the process. So we started raising voices saying, no, this is wrong. Everybody has to be part of this process because we are aware that the CADEP principle, one of it is inclusion, participation. So we had the right to be in that process. We didn't wait. So we will participate, get other NGOs involved, other non-state actors, speak as one, get the results. Then we used to work with RISACs, get the breakdown of the reports they have done both at the region or country level, use that and disseminate to our members. We progress to having national dialogues where we bring in the ministry officials to tell us what the result of the country is, bring in the farmers, bring in the other non-state actors. So everybody sit on the table, we analyze this and see where the gaps are. And this will also help us when we do advocacies with our government at all the different levels. Another stakeholder that we also realized was important was the parliamentarians. You want to pass budget, you want to do any policy issues or decisions in the agriculture sector, for example, it has to go to the parliament. And at times, they don't even know what you're talking about. So we started doing what we call parliamentary briefings. Apart from just briefing them on budget analysis we have done, we also share CADIP biannual review reports. At least I know that in some of the countries where we work, we've been the ones to introduce this information, get them galvanized into asking questions and getting involved. Because we let them know that we as countries and regions have signed into this. The results that are being shared is provided by the countries. So we need to ask questions. We need to cover and put the issues of the people at the forefront. And this has really helped. We also do what you call stakeholders consultative meetings. Over the years, we realized that engaging in one particular sector, like the agriculture sector, was not really helping in pushing for advocacy for increased investment in agriculture. We realized that the budget office had a role to play. The National Planning Commission had a role to play, Ministry of Finance, and others. So how do we make sure that they're all talking to each other? Then bringing in the Cardiff focal persons of the country to say, please come and share our report, so that they begin to know when you make demands for increased budget allocation, this is why we are saying this. And then the farmers are coming to say, these gaps we have found that this is how it's affecting us. So if you plow resources into these areas, it's going to help us. So that has been very useful because we have these consultative meetings prior to the budget cycles. And this has helped influence the budget allocations in the country, though it has not reached the benchmark, but you know there's been that progress. And apart from getting the progress in allocation, areas that will affect the farmers are also being taken into consideration. Like I know after the second or third BR, one of the issues Nigeria had was the issue of data. So we kept on pushing. You can't do a budget without having an allocation for data collection, because that is why you are not doing well. You're not, collating the efforts you put in your work. So you have to allocate money and make sure that these things are being done. Then we also have, we also engage parliamentarians at the regional level, because this is bottom up. Even if the countries are, doing well, even if it's 1 or 2, 3 countries, the region also has a role to play. So we conduct what you call agriculture budget summits. So far, we've been engaging with the Yala Parliament and the ECOWAS Parliament. But it was while we were doing all this, we realized that it wasn't just enough. There has to be that opportunity where parliamentarians in the different countries in Africa talk to each other, learn from each other. Oh, Rwanda is doing so well. Why are they doing well? What are they doing differently? Oh, Kenya have moved up. What have they changed? Oh, Ghana is now moving up. What have they changed? Oh, why is a particular country not moving forward or going backward? What has happened? Because these people are the faces of the people. They are being voted in. So whatever decisions they take will also have effects on the people. And then again, we try as much as possible to ensure that when we bring this data and disseminate it, we pick out the gaps, and that is what, the farmer groups, the advocacy groups of the agriculture, CBOs and NGOs use to engage the government at the different levels to make sure that interest is being put into their areas. Thank you. I'll stop for now.
Thank you very much, Constance. The audience can feel the passion when you speak about these important issues. For those who didn't know, as she mentioned, it was not given that non-state actors will play an important role in the CADE process from the start. So this has been a very interesting learning process to all of us. Many things have happened, including the inclusion that Titi just mentioned today. You can see on this panel is very balanced. Gender representation is not just to be fashion. It's something that's real. We realize that unless you have this kind of considerations, you will most likely not make it. So the panel is composed in a way that you bring various perspectives from different constituencies. Let me bring in someone from the government, Mrs. Ongozi from Kenya. You are, as the CADE focal point for Kenya, you've been actively involved in the past 3 BR cycles. We've met you several times. Can you briefly tell us in your role how you are using BR data? What are you doing to promote the use of BR data in Kenya? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yes, it is true that I've been involved in the 4 BR cycles. In Kenya, I've actually been coordinating, and immediately the results come out and the report is ready. We do call, in Kenya we have a country CADIC team. This is a team that is, the members are nominated by different ministries, by PSS, some by CEOs, and it cuts across the whole sector. Even non-state actors are represented, the private sector, everybody is there. So we meet and we go through the report step by step. It's a meeting of not less than 2 days. We go through that report. Now, we go, identifying the actual challenges. We also try to suggest possibly what could change things. So when we leave that report, everybody goes home with the takeaway, with a report, with a BR report, with that meeting's report, and then also suggestions on what can change. Due to limitation of finances, we would wish to go further than that. But after the third BR, we were also able to call the senior officials of the ministry, of other departments, of CEOs for a meeting to disseminate the BR data, because these are actually the advisors to the PSS. But we have realized that for agriculture to change in Kenya, we need to monitor it from the lower, the county level. So we have developed a schedule similar to the BR, but what means to the county level of government. And so we have in agreement, we have developed with them, and so now that is what we are going to use as we disseminate the BR results to the counties, and that is what we are going to use to conduct joint sector reviews at the county level. We did one at national level, and we felt when we consulted the counties, we realized a very big challenge. So we decided at national level, a joint sector review has no meaning. We go down to the county level and we conduct joint sector review that is actually similar to a BR. So that is how we are disseminating the data. But we are looking forward to even biannual dialogues between the senior policy makers and the private sector and other sectors at that high level to dialogue through the results of the BR. That way we shall see more policy actions emanating from that. That is what I can say now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josephine. I've picked a few things in what you've just stated. The way Kenya is innovatively adapting the BR to the national context is a call that we have been hearing for some years now. The fact that it's happening, that you are bringing the conversation to the subnational level is indeed the way to go. Because unless you are able to pinpoint where the issues are, where the pains are exactly at national level, your effort may not be fruitful. And I've also noted the fact that in your country, you're trying your best to make the process very inclusive, embracing the food system approach by bringing several components of the system together. Thank you for sharing that. Having heard from a cadre focal point, let's now listen to Prof. Mutondo, who is part of the government as a technical advisor, but also coming from university, from a knowledge center. So can you please share with us how your support is helping to promote the BR use, the BR data use in the country? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I thank Academia 263 for inviting me to this meeting. And I also thank the Ministry of Agriculture for the opportunity to work with them, and the AGRA, who also play an important role in Mozambique for the BR, and also supporting my engagement with the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. And of course, RESAX for the all engagement on the studies that we do for Mozambique. So I think the question is about the role that we play for promoting the usage of BR data. First of all, if we see the Malabo commitments, we have 7 commitments. The commitment number 1 and the commitment number 7 are the one that myself have called the walls. So if we can plan and have the process arranged and the platform for implementation of the process also arranged, then we can promote mutual accountability, and those 2 issues will promote the performance of the other commitments that we have there in the middle. So what we did in Mozambique for promotion of the usage of BR data, first was the establishment and operationalization of Agriculture Sector Coordination Committee. So throughout the country, we established the Agriculture Sector Coordination Committee, and through this committee, we also established what we call the Agriculture Sector Working Groups. Those groups are the ones that we have the data cluster and other arrangements towards the dissemination of agriculture, of BR data, as well as the respective results. Through the Agriculture Sector Coordination Committee that we established throughout the country, we were able to engage different stakeholders, and specifically the local governance, who now are sensitized about the BR as well as the BR data. So that is the first role that we did. Secondly, we engaged different agriculture development partners and agencies in Mozambique. We mapped the agriculture projects and programs that are there in Mozambique to see how those programs are aligned with the BR, and sensitize the different development partners to use the BR data to develop their own programs and projects which are being implemented there in Mozambique. Thirdly, we do studies. I would like to mention here that we just approved our National Investment Plan, and for that, since we had now data for the BR process, number 1, 2, 2 and 3, a little bit of that. We engaged also Academia 2063 through Dr. Fofana, who did the rationalization study. That one was a key because we use BR data to see the different investments that can be useful for promoting the sustainable development of agriculture sector in Mozambique. And that study was key for the development of the new PEDSA and the new NAIP that we have there in the country. And we also have the joint sector reviews. Through RESAX, we did the joint sector reviews in the country. Those reviews use also the BR data, and we see the performance of the country for different aspects. It's true that we get the performance from the BR, but we do our own also performance there, and we communicate different stakeholders, and from that we improve the agriculture sector. In the past, which now we're going towards revitalization, is the agricultural analytical network. We have a network with different institutions, including academia, as well as development partners, who use the BR data and other data sets existing in Mozambique to conduct studies and produce the respective policy briefs, which are used by different actors to make changes in the country. So this analytical group, we engage universities, and that also is what I push for individually, to engage young students at the master's level, PhD's level, even BSc, depending on analysis to be made, to use this data, the BR data, to produce results for graduation, but not only to recommend the government what to do. And when we do that, also we're training those young professionals who will be the contributors for the BR for the next process. So this is what I can say for now is a role of promoting the use of BR data in Mozambique. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Mutondo. I'm personally able to relate to what you're saying. In my previous life, I happened to serve as a consultant, short-term consultant to the government of Mozambique. From what you are presenting, I can see how far you have come as a country. We're very happy to see that you are also going the direction that Kenya mentioned with the devolution happening in Kenya. You are also trying to go to with the regional governors to the subnational level to try and make sense out of the BR data that you have gathered so far. Let me now turn to Boaz Kesire, representing AGRA. We are here thanks to AGRA that has put together the AGRF with partners, of course, acting as an important enabler in this accountability, in promoting accountability culture, Boaz, and processes under Malabo agenda. Can you please tell us how are you promoting the use of the BR data? If the BR is happening, we are not here to say that ABCD has contributed the most, but definitely contribution from AGRA is very critical, as mentioned by some panelists here already. What is it that you do to enable the use of the BR? Thank you.
Thank you so much, moderator. Let me start maybe by appreciating academia for organizing this session in this gathering, specifically to really continue the function of bringing partners together, bringing actors together in a mutual accountability way. So congratulations to you for being able to bring us together here. Maybe before I go back specifically to that question, if you allow me, moderator, let me just take a step back and look at why do we think that data evidence analysis is important? And I know everybody has said this, but I just want to take a small step back, really to reflect on both the pre-biennial review and the post-biennial review, and what are we seeing, and therefore moving to the question that we've just asked to give this question a context. During the early days of some of us when we were engaged in CADAP and at country level in Uganda, where I grew up and worked in the Ministry of Agriculture, I think for me the pre-biennial review was characterized by two major areas or events or actions that I think are so fundamental to appreciate the role of data and evidence. And these two, one is the process of developing national agriculture and food security investment plans. There was a lot of struggle, all of you have read the history of CADAP, in adopting CADAP as a framework. Many people questioned as to why the value of CADAP would bring to the entire development space. But I think as a young economist in the Ministry of Agriculture, when CADAP was being introduced, and in the process of designing national agriculture and investment plans, a very key fundamental game-changing idea for me as one of the areas was the analysis that was being ushered in by IFPRI to share and determine the growth and investment options analysis, really to guide the nature of type of investments you require to drive the agriculture sector. Why am I saying that? In many of the planning processes that characterized our work, you know, what were the major challenges in agriculture? Research, extension. And therefore, people never understood what actually would constrain growth in the agriculture sector until the growth and options investment analysis. You know, in agriculture, when you are an economist in the Ministry of Agriculture and the people from IFPRI come and tell you about the computable general equilibrium modeling and the social accounting matrix, these sound highly technical jargons that you don't easily understand on your daily basis. But for me, as a young economist, I think it was very, very critical to appreciate how important it is to know the nature and the type of investments you require to grow the sector, and therefore to design and the type of kind of plans you require. People like Sam Benin, the regent at the time, I think were deployed by IFPRI, Usman, if you recall, to come and help us countries to understand and simplify the technicalities associated and be able to design an investment plan. I'm talking about evidence, data to influence decision making. So the adoption of national investment plans as a model was very, very critical. The second phase within that space was, I think, which I recall was very fundamental, was this, and it was part of the pillars of CADAP actually, which you talked about, even Panlen in your remarks, and TC. the research. I just wanted to go back to the way it was called as a pillar. It was a knowledge generation part of monitoring the progress of CAADP, because it was very easy to talk about the pillars of CAADP, but it wasn't clear how do we be able to know that change is happening. So instruments like the research, incubated model that IFPRI led by people like Usman Bedian, to be able to understand on a regular basis, because this was the biannual review pre-BR we know today, because it regularly gave us the nature and the type of progress that against specific and agreed indicators on a regular basis. Some of us were ardent readers of, and continue to be, of the annual trends and outlook report. Why? Because that's the only source and home where you'd find the regular data compiled that compares countries across different indicators, and then you are able to guide your permanent secretary, you are able to guide the minister on the kind of changes in terms of investment they need to be making. Because there's always a struggle, those of you who work with governments, and my colleague has just said it, to convince a policy decision maker who is about to meet his politician or his boss in the cabinet to use evidence. So the only source and home was be able to say, as a country, we are not making this progress, and we are able to see another country making good progress. So those two fundamental elements, the analysis that shaped the National Agriculture Investment Plans, driven and led by IFPRI at the time, the annual trends and outlook report through research was really kind of fundamental pre the biennial review. Evidence, data, and modeling and analysis for decision making. So there comes the biennial review itself, so it was very critical. Maybe I should have mentioned one very critical decision making point that happened, and I think the International Food Policy Research Institute hosted an event in Washington in the margins of the UNGA meetings. And it was a time when there were a lot of struggle to understand the value added of CAADP. And ministers of finance and others were gathered in Washington, but IFPRI hosted and led by USAID as well, really to understand what is CAADP, what does it add value? And ministers were invited, ministers of agriculture were invited in those sessions, and I was lucky as a CAADP focal point actually to be invited to speak to that session. And for me, I gave from a passion that it is very difficult in the Ministry of Agriculture to be able to say that you need to put money in extension and research. Who tells you that research and extension are the fundamental constraint to driving change in the agriculture sector? Unless you begin to know that it's the major drivers of growth, whether it's a maize-led growth, whether it's a livestock-led growth, then you'll be able to know to tailor the nature and the type of extension you require to move that particular sector. It was a game changer in terms of adoption of such an instrument. That's pre-BR. So during BR, it became very critical as well. And that's why AGRA invested in that space, not because we are feeding a financial gap, but because as an institution, we see a strong value, together with other partners that put resources in that space, on the quality and the nature of investments. As most of you may recall, AGRA started with, from a green revolution kind of mindset, trying to model and pick a style of the green revolution, and a fertilizer seed-led growth. But as you invest in those and invest in markets, how do you know that you are making a difference? Those are the questions that we are really struggling within the organization to see. You can actually design your own monitoring and evaluation tools and models and collect data. But unless you compare it with the continental framework, and thanks to our leadership that understands and appreciates that there's a continental framework, that's only when we realize that you need to pay attention to the continental agreed, approved framework, and therefore invest in that space, but also go down in the ground and invest in where change should be happening. That when the CAADP biennial review comes to big data, they find the right data. But also in the mutual accountability space. Thanks, Constance, for talking about that. Because unless you bring actors together, it's very easy for us individuals to be satisfied with what you're doing. But unless you're putting a platform where you're able to be mutually held accountable, challenge each other, then only then you can be able to see progress that's happening. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Boaz, for that very powerful submission. Some of us can relate to the things that you have presented. We know we have not given the audience an opportunity to react to the presentations. I just decided to try and save some time. I mean, and catch up on a few things because I wanted the panel first to have an opportunity to go for a second round of questions. Then I will bring in the audience to address their questions either to the panelists or to the presenters or both. Let me now go for the second round of questions, inviting Prof. Mutondo to just share with us what are the two specific examples of where CADEB-BR data has helped trigger policy actions in Mozambique, the country that you support?
Thank you very much. So if I understood very well, the question is how the BR has influenced the policies in Mozambique, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, it seems like we're not making noise, but we are. we're really making noise and things are changing. In the case of Mozambique, recently the government approved the economic acceleration package. That one is for improving the performance of value chains, and specifically the agriculture value chains. Through that package, the corporate income tax for agriculture reduced from 32% to 10%. Also, they removed the import tax for agriculture inputs. So that is a key policy that I can mention here that is towards improving agriculture value chain resulting from the BR. Additional second one, Mozambique approved recently the industrialization program. So the country until 2030 is going to establish the industrialization villages and more concentrate for agriculture commodities. So by that time, we will have around 150 villages, industrialization villages, which will have appropriate infrastructure for the development of the agriculture value chain, but more for processing agriculture commodities. And as we know, one of the commitments of the BR is the improving agriculture trade. So through this program also industrialization, Mozambique is trying to participate more in agriculture trade, adding value. We have cashew nuts that we're still exporting raw, and now they want to process more and the other value, not just for cashew nut, but for other commodities. And also we'd like to reduce import dependency. So there's programs that are being availed for import substitution, and mainly for rice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Mutondo. Let me invite Constance, two things very briefly that you have supported that has been converted into policy changes or actions on the ground.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, one of the things that we have done has been to reorganize the way we engage in the CADEB process as non-state actors. We've realized that we needed to amplify the BR reports and results and the CADEB process, and we could only do that by coming together as one. So we've set up what you call the CADEB Non-State Actors Group, CNG, and like I shared earlier on, in the course of engaging with the parliamentarians, we realized the role, the importance of their role and engagement in this process. And with the support of the African Union, DRA, Department of Rural Economy and Agriculture, we've managed to catalyze their thinking to coming together as a network to play their role as government officials in the whole process. So they've set up what we call the African Food Systems Parliamentary Network, and our role is also to provide them with technical support, evidence-based information that could also help them do their proper oversight to the ministries and also integrating the CADEB into the agriculture, integrating the results of the CADEP BR into the agricultural development plans. And then again, we ensure that we also use our structures at the different regions, like we have the ECOWAS non-state actors, we have the EAC non-state actors, and the SADC non-state actors. We are still working towards getting the ECAS and the UMA region to be part of this process. And then also using what we call the non-state actors VAP toolkit. We also encourage our non-state actors members to not just only disseminate the VR reports or data, but also help in generating this data. We've participated in doing that and generating these data in Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania, and then we have seen it also help the country progress. For example, in Nigeria, while they had not met up the benchmark for this last BR, they acknowledged the role that the non-state actors played in generating data in some key areas. And lastly, our engagement in the technical working groups set up by African Union in the seven performance category area and a special area on advocacy and communications, we've been able to push for more indicators. I was happy when, I think Titi shared it, the 3 new indicators on the information, dissemination and utilization, because that was one of our key requests. That is not just enough to disseminate, but how do countries utilize this, and then also involvement of women and youth participation in agriculture. So this has really helped in pushing the process forward, but we still need as much help as we can, because if we want to get that result across the 55 countries, more hands needs to be on deck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me now turn to Boaz. You are squarely in the policy space. Can you please give us in 1 minute 2 instances where you've seen the use of BR trigger a change?
I just have 2 examples. The first example was prior to the release of the 2017 biennial report. Under the leadership of the African Union, NEPAD organized a meeting in the United General Assembly in New York, the few heads of states. The intention was to begin to start a process of popularizing BR and create change in the minds of decision makers. So there was around 5 heads of state hosted by the Prime Minister of Ethiopia then, the Haile Mariam, the current chair of Agra board. President Lungu, Bill Gates were in that room, President Kagame was in the room, Musa Faki was in the room. And when Strive Masiwa was moderating a session, he saw no head of state was concentrating on what he was saying. They were all glued into what is about to emerge. So he asked President Lungu, why are you not listening to me? You know how Strive speaks, Strive Masiwa, challenging heads of state. They're saying, I am only concerned I see a lot of reds in my country on all the indicators. What is actually not happening? That is the power of the biennial review, to compare countries across various indicators to see what is going on, what is not happening, irrespective of the quality of data.
Number 1.
Few months later, in Davos, we had a similar gathering of different heads of states, but the constant ones were President Kagame, Haile Mariam, and they were saying, in a week we are going to be presenting this report to the AU, but we just wanted to see the flavor. And Haile Mariam cautioned, he was chairing that session, do not circulate, don't use this data, but we wanted just to taste the feeling. And President Kagame said, no. I am concerned about the performance of nutrition in my country, and I immediately want to ask my Minister of Finance, who was seated in the room, to go and constitute a task force on how to revamp and move on nutrition agenda. And he said, irrespective of the quality of the data, this is telling me something. That's changing the mind of the policymaker with the CADA biennial review. And we continue to do that along. There are so many good examples at technical level that I couldn't enumerate, but because of time we don't.
Okay, boss. Thank you for those insights. Now, you, Mr. Ongosi, in Kenya, tell us the story. 2 instances where you've seen change.
Thank you again. As I said that BR results are shared within a sectoral team. And so there are as many as the sector and the different teams. But as you're asking for only 2, let me stick for the 2 T+1. Now, during the first BR, as a country, we realized a challenge of data. It was such a big challenge that we initiated a system of ensuring that we have quality data and real-time data that can be used for policy interventions. And so the ministry created a statistical unit, and the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics started now strengthening this unit, of course with the support from development partners like the World Bank. And then we have moved on. We have developed the Kenya Integrated Agricultural Management Information System, KIAMIS, with several modules, and we are implementing several of these modules. One of the modules that we are implementing is the Kenya Agricultural Market Information System, where we are collecting data on daily basis from 5 markets in a county, and that information is availed in a website for different stakeholders. Then we are also implementing the e-voucher for subsidy programs, and currently, and this is the biggest part of it, is that the farmer registration is a module within this KIAMIS. And as we are speaking right now, we have teams all over the country trying to register farmers, and we are going to profile these farmers such that we shall be having interventions tailored to different farmers for different areas. The second one is the post-harvest losses. Imagine seeing the percentage of post-harvest losses, and this brings about affecting the productivity. So we began also the process of developing a post-harvest losses reduction strategy with the support from FAO. It's not complete yet, but also the different departments started interventions. We have the livestock sector. We have the government issuing milk coolers to farmers through cooperatives. We have the crops department also providing farmers through their cooperatives with the solar dryers. And again, another one, a mega one, is that we are implementing the warehouse receipting system, where farmers can harvest their produce, take it to an accredited store where the good practices of storing are provided, of course at a fee on monthly basis, as they await to get good markets for their produce. But +1, the data, the 2017 data also, our national treasury used the year on food and nutrition to carry out the Kenyan study for the cost of hunger in Africa, and to justify that study. And the recommendations are currently being implemented by different international organizations, even ministries, departments, and the agencies. Thank you very much for that opportunity.
Thank you very much. I think we have received a handful of very concrete examples of how the BR data is being used. Now, because of time, we are going to invite 2-3 questions from the floor and allow Dr. Badjan to close. Can I, by show of hands, see the first? Yes, Sebastian from IFDC. You don't need to introduce yourself, just ask your question straight to the person. Just 1 second so that we can try and get
Thank you very much, Augustine. Good to be here. I think in the post-Malabo agenda, my sort of wish would be that for the BR process to sort of continue, because I think it's the closest mechanism we have to data democratization in Africa. What you're seeing, we have disjointed at best, sometimes interventions in collecting data sets that are within the same value chain. So if we can continue the BR process even post-Malabo, I think that would be a very, very good example.
Thank you very much for your contribution. That was an input. We all value that. Second question, second comment. Yes, madam.
Something that really hit me is somebody's mentioned that the time it takes to convince parliamentarians. So my question to you guys would be, how can we have greater shared ownership and accountability on our data before it's even being collected? Because he's talking about continuity, but I think for me, changing that paradigm shift as well, because we shouldn't be convincing them after the data is collected. Thank you.
Very good. I guess Constance will take that one on. One last question, comment. For your information, a formal online session, when the time comes, will be organized. Dr. Sam and the team will make a thorough presentation and give audience enough time to engage on the decision support tool that has been presented. Constance, can you please give us a sense of, yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. That's a good observation, and that's why I was sharing that one of the things that we see as a positive is the consensus by the parliamentarians to work as a team to engage in the process ab initio. Because if you wait until the report is out, it's like, you know, beating the dead horse already. So, but now they are engaging in the process, they are being part of the whole process, starting from the data collection, they are kept abreast, they play a role in validation of the data, and when the report comes out, they are also part of it, and now using it themselves to engage the executive arm to ensure that things are done rightly. But at the same time, giving ear to the people, because the interface also provides that opportunity. So yes, you are correct, and they are already being part of that process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we all give a round of applause to our panelists? I hope my sister Mumbi will forgive me for taking a few more minutes, but we really need to invite Dr. Badian to close. I think Pandoleni used up her time in her welcoming remarks. Over to you, Dr. Badian.
Much to all those who have joined us, including those who are coming for the next session. So welcome, good having you here. Thank you to our panelists to bring the feel of BR on the ground and what it means to us here. Thank you to Boaz for the piece of history. It's refreshing to see how many of those who started CAADP are now in these positions just like you are and across the continent. So it's a testament of the breadth of what CAADP was, but also of the relevance of it at the country level, so that those who are involved in action and were growing through the ranks were also those who are carrying CAADP, and that's what we see here today. So thank you very much. Sam, it's great to have you here and to work with you. We started this a long time ago, and we continue to do that. We will do whatever we can to strengthen the relationship there. And Prof, the local analysis network in Mozambique, I think we're going to have one in Kenya if we don't already have one here. So we're going to go into the countries and work with the universities, the think tanks, the planning units, the Bureau of Statistics, so that we can carry out this kind of work, just like we're doing it in Mozambique and somewhere else. So which is, I think, something that we need to do more of, and we will certainly will do. One comment I would like to make for our colleagues and friends here, the BR is so important for what we do because it's basically helping us stay true to our ambitions, to our aspirations as we move forward. We look at the outcomes, the scores all the time, but also would encourage us to go beyond the scores of the BR as we talk about what's happening on the continent, especially now that we're looking back to Malabo and Maputo. The ambitions and aspirations we're trying to meet are ahead of us. The progress we're accomplishing is today on the ground, and often we mix the two. We look at the outcome of the BR score and we say we are not going anywhere. Just means that we are behind our ambitions and have to do better. But if you look at the ground, what's happening over the last 20 years, what CAADP did in moving the agenda, that is impressive, right? One way to just explain this is that if all African countries were spending 9.5% of budget, and they were all growing at 5.9% of GDP. None of them will be on track based on the BR. And that is an amazing outcome. So we need to make that distinction when we look at it so that people know that their efforts, the investment, this overall movement has generated results for us. And as he said, you go to the RESAC's website, you look at all those different indicators, you'll see that we have really come a long way, and that's quite important for us. And looking forward, Sam, thank you. Our teams are working to move the decision support tools. We have enhanced the team at Academia 2063 of modelers and IT people. So we hope that we should be able to launch this after the proof of concept toward the end of this year. We're doing everything we can to do that. And perhaps later we can make the model a little bit more sophisticated as we go. We, all of us, and I'm sure you'll remember Boaz and others who were here 20 years ago, wouldn't be where we are today without the support of certain of our partners, including USAID. A lot of people here talk about RESAC, but it's broader than that. It's the African Union Commission, it's the Regional Economic Communities, it's AgroDep, it's so many things that we do. Of course, working with BMGF, yourself as AGRA, but also as a bilaterals and multilaterals. So that consistency of support is also part of the success of CAADP. That's why it's still kicking and going after 20 years. So we very much appreciated this event and everybody who is here. We would like to ask you to make note of the next RESAC's annual conference taking place November 9 to 11 in Rabat. It's going to be focusing on the food system transformation agenda and how that could help inform the post-Malabo agenda. So we look forward to engaging with all of you as we think through what we would like to see this agenda look like post-2025. Again, thank you for AGRF and the team, and thank you for everybody who's been here with us. We look forward to more and better CAADP moments to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Osman. Thank you to our panelists. And now the session is over.